Moses and the Exodus, a journey of faith. Introduction. Welcome back to the Bible Story Corner. Today, we'll explore the incredible story of Moses and the Exodus, a powerful tale of faith, freedom, and resilience. This story teaches us about trusting in God, even when the journey seems impossible. So, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Part 1. The Call of Moses. Exodus 3. Our story begins in the land of Midian, where Moses, a shepherd, encounters God in a burning bush. God calls out to Moses saying, "I have seen the suffering of my people in Egypt, and I want you to lead them to freedom." Imagine Moses, feeling unworthy and afraid. He asks God, "Who am I to do this?" This moment reminds us that we all have doubts about our abilities. But just like Moses, we must remember that God equips those he calls. If you're facing a challenge, remember that you're not alone. God is with you. Part 2. The Plagues. Exodus 7-12. Moses returns to Egypt, but Pharaoh refuses to let the Israelites go. God sends 10 plagues to demonstrate his power, turning water into blood, frogs, lice, flies, livestock diseases, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, and finally, the death of the firstborn. Each plague was a sign that God was serious about freeing his people. It's a reminder that sometimes, we must endure difficulties before we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Are you going through tough times? Trust that these challenges can lead to something greater. Part 3. The Passover. Exodus 12. Before the final plague, God instructs the Israelites to mark their doors with lamb's blood, so the angel of death would pass over their homes. This event is known as Passover, symbolizing salvation and deliverance. This teaches us about the importance of faith and obedience. Just as the Israelites showed faith by marking their doors, we are called to trust in God's plan, even when we don't fully understand it. If you believe in the power of faith, give us a thumbs up. Part 4. The Exodus. Exodus 12-14. After the final plague, Pharaoh finally lets the Israelites go. They leave Egypt, filled with hope but also uncertainty. However, Pharaoh changes his mind and pursues them. The Israelites find themselves trapped by the Red Sea. In this moment of fear, God tells Moses to raise his staff. Miraculously, the waters part, allowing the Israelites to cross on dry ground. When Pharaoh's army follows, the waters return, sealing their fate. This dramatic escape teaches us that God can make a way where there seems to be none. When faced with obstacles, remember that faith can lead to miraculous outcomes. If you've experienced a miracle in your life, share it in the comments. Conclusion. Lessons from Moses. As we wrap up this epic tale, let's take a closer look at the invaluable lessons we can learn from Moses and the Exodus story. 1. God calls us. Moses was an ordinary shepherd, yet God chose him for an extraordinary purpose. This shows us that anyone can be called to fulfill a divine mission, regardless of their background or past mistakes. Just like Moses, we might feel unworthy or ill-equipped, but God sees potential in each of us. Reflection. Are you listening for God's call in your life? Take time to pray and seek his guidance. Remember, God often calls us in the most unexpected ways. 2. Faith in trials. The Israelites endured immense suffering in Egypt and faced challenges during their journey to freedom. Yet through every trial, God was with them, providing signs of his power and presence. The plagues demonstrated his authority over all creation, reinforcing the idea that even in our darkest moments, God is working for our good. Reflection. What trials are you facing today? Consider how these challenges might be shaping your character or preparing you for something greater. Trust that God is using your difficulties to build resilience and faith. 3. Obedience and trust. When God instructed the Israelites to mark their doors for Passover, it required faith and obedience. They had to trust that following God's command would lead to their salvation. Similarly, Moses had to obey God's instructions to part the Red Sea, even when it seemed impossible. Reflection. Are there areas in your life where you need to show more obedience and trust? Reflect on what it means to follow God's guidance, even when the path is unclear. Remember, obedience often leads to blessings beyond what we can imagine. The parting of the Red Sea is a powerful symbol of God's ability to perform the miraculous. When faced with seemingly insurmountable obstacles, God made a way for his people. This teaches us that no situation is too difficult for God to handle. Reflection. Think about the Red Sea moments in your lifetimes when you felt stuck or trapped. How did God make a way for you? Sharing these stories can encourage others who may be facing similar challenges. 5. Community and support. Throughout the Exodus, the Israelites traveled together as a community. They supported one another in their journey toward freedom. This teaches us the importance of fellowship and encouragement in our own lives. Reflection. How can you support someone in your community today? Whether through a kind word, a helping hand, or simply listening, we are called to uplift one another, just as the Israelites did. Imagine a young man named Moses living in Egypt thousands of years ago. He's not just any young man, though. He's the son of Hebrew slaves who've been living in Egypt for a long time. But one day when Moses is out with his sheep, he sees something shocking. An Egyptian is beating a Hebrew slave. So without hesitation, Moses steps in and saves the day by killing the Egyptian. Who knew Moses had such courage? But here's the thing, his good deed didn't go unnoticed. Pharaoh, the powerful ruler of Egypt, found out about what Moses did and got super angry. He was so mad that he put a price on Moses' head, basically saying anyone who finds him should kill him. So Moses had to run away and hide. He didn't know where to go or what to do until he came across the land of Midian. There he settled down and started a new life. Years passed and Moses was now a grown man with a wife and kids. One day while he was hanging out with his father-in-law, who was a priest, he saw a bush on fire. But it wasn't just any bush. God was talking to him through that bush. Can you imagine? God said he wanted Moses to go back to Egypt and free the Israelites from slavery. But Moses wasn't so sure about this plan. He was like, me, but I'm just a simple guy. I don't know if I can do this. But God was like, don't worry, Moses. I'll be with you every step of the way. Just trust me. And that gave Moses the courage to say yes and take on this huge task. So Moses went back to Egypt and started talking to Pharaoh like, yo Pharaoh, it's time to set my people free. But Pharaoh was all, nah, I don't think so. You guys are our slaves, and we like it that way. Plus, you're not even a real Egyptian. You're a Hebrew, a foreigner, so buzz off. And Moses was like, okay, then let me show you what God can do. And he did some pretty crazy stuff. He turned his staff into a snake, made his hand look all scaly, like a reptile, and even turned water into blood. Those were some impressive magic tricks, but they didn't convince Pharaoh to let the Israelites go. In fact, Pharaoh got even angrier and was like, you're officially a troublemaker, and we're gonna make your life really hard. So Moses and his brother Aaron kept doing these mind-blowing things to show Pharaoh that God was really mad at Egypt. They turned frogs into rats, sent swarms of gnats everywhere, and even made it so that there was a terrible hailstorm. But still, stubborn old Pharaoh wouldn't budge. He was like, I don't care if God himself shows up. I'm not letting those slaves go. That's when God told Moses to do something really tough. He told him to ask Pharaoh to let all the firstborn sons of Egypt die. Yeah, that's a pretty extreme request, right? But Moses was like, well, if that's what it takes to free my people, then so be it. So he went back to Pharaoh and was like, hey Pharaoh, God says you gotta let us go. And if you don't, every firstborn son in Egypt will die. Pharaoh was furious. He was like, you think you can threaten me? I'm the most powerful guy in Egypt. I'm not scared of your God or anything. But deep down, he was kind of scared. So he made a deal with Moses. He agreed to let the Israelites go, but only if Moses could guess what his daughter's name was. And Moses was like, uh-oh, how am I supposed to know that? But God was there to save the day. He gave Moses a hint and told him to name all the girls in the palace after his daughter. Guess who had the same name as Pharaoh's daughter? Yep, you guessed it, Moses' daughter. So Pharaoh had to stick to his word and let the Israelites go. But before they left, God gave them some rules to follow. He told them to take some special gifts called the 10 plagues, which were like reminders of all the crazy stuff God had done in Egypt. Then God led the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt and towards a place called Canaan, which was supposed to be their new home. It was an epic journey. God parted the Red Sea so they could walk through on dry land. He gave them food called manna and water from a rock, and he even gave them 10 commandments to help them live good and happy lives. Now, along their journey, they faced lots of challenges. Sometimes they ran out of food and water, sometimes they were scared of the big scary world outside of Egypt, and sometimes they doubted if God would really take care of them. But through all of it, God showed them that he was with them every step of the way. He protected them, guided them, and gave them everything they needed to survive. The journey took 40 days, and at the end of it, they reached Mount Sinai, which was like a big mountain in the middle of nowhere. And that's where they stayed for a while, and God gave them those 10 commandments. So there you have the story of Moses and the Exodus. It's a story about freedom, hope, and faith. Moses was just a regular guy, but God chose him to do extraordinary things. He led millions of people out of slavery and into freedom. He performed miracles that amazed everyone, and he received the 10 commandments, which became the foundation of a great nation. The story of Moses is full of action, adventure, and important lessons. We see how ordinary people like you and me can do amazing things when they trust in God and believe in his plan for them. It's a story that inspires us to be brave, to stand up for what's right, and to never give up on hope. Now, why is this story so important? Well, first of all, it's a story about freedom. The Israelites were slaves in Egypt, but God set them free and led them to a new life in Canaan. It's a story that reminds us that no matter how difficult our situation may seem, God is with us and he wants us to be free. Second, it's a story of miracles. God did amazing things to help the Israelites, like parting the Red Sea and giving them water from a rock. These miracles remind us that God is in control and he can do anything. We don't have to be afraid because God is with us. And finally, it's a story of faith. Moses didn't know exactly how God would help the Israelites, but he trusted God's plan and believed in his promises. This story teaches us to trust in God even when we don't understand his plan or when things seem difficult. As we look back on the incredible journey of Moses and the Exodus, let's remember the lessons it holds for us today. Let's be brave like Moses, trust in God's plan, and never give up on hope. And let's always remember that God is with us, guiding us and protecting us every step of the way.